How's it going, everyone? Joseph back here with another video, and I hope you're having an amazing week so far. Today, I wanted to do a really quick video just talking about 5 car trends that you probably noticed, but things that I find just drive me crazy. And so we're gonna have a bit of a discussion about that today. So strap in and let's go for a drive. Okay, so the first car trend that I wanted to talk about is screens. Now, if you've been in any modern car, you would have noticed that, well, there's a lot of them and they're getting bigger and bigger. And for me, that's something that's a bit frustrating because, well, really a couple things. Number one, it's too much information in our face. Wherever we go, whatever we're doing, we're always being bombarded with a million different notifications and the option to do our Facebook and Instagram and any other social media platform that you can think of. And all these notifications are coming at us and text messages and things like that. And it's too much in my opinion. And so with these screens, now you've got all this information coming at you all the time and you never really get a break. But the other part that's a little frustrating with all these screens is it's taking away a lot of the design. When you think about cars of the past that you really enjoy looking at and driving and just give you that sort of sense of experience, you think about cars that have been styled, really, really nicely. There's a lot of contours, there's use of materials, there's some really cool things that go on in them. And the one thing those cars probably don't have are massive screens. Now with all these new screens, basically designers have to carve out most of the dashboard for these screens, and they don't get to do all the really cool flowing designs and integrating the air vents in really interesting and unique ways and putting other design features and stuff like that in the cars because, well, the screens just take up most of that space. And so that's something that I find to be a little frustrating, and it's unfortunate because there isn't really a lot of inspiration going into car designs nowadays. Every car that you go into, kind of looks and feels very similar just because of the gigantic screens that you have in the front. The second car trend that I find to be really frustrating is this constant struggle with aerodynamics. Now, I understand that we want to be as efficient as possible whenever we drive, and so the cars have to be designed in a way that's super aerodynamic and really efficient, but the struggle with that is that in the pursuit of this ultimate sort of efficient design, we're losing a little bit of the excitement on the exterior of the cars as well. And that to me is a little frustrating because, car designers, again, they have to think about every little crevice and every little shape and decide, well, is that really going to add to the fuel economy or is that going to detract from it? And that is unfortunate because a lot of car designs are now looking a little more generic. Cars are just the same shape and designers don't get a chance to be more creative and find ways to, just do something a little more exciting with their cars. And so that to me is a little bit unfortunate. Okay, the third car trend that I find to be a little frustrating, and I know this is going to be extremely controversial, is this pursuit of power. Now, don't get me wrong, I love power. I love getting in a car that has a lot of power and you get to put your foot on the accelerator, listen to it go, and just enjoy that insane speed. But the challenge is that there are crazy powerful cars nowadays, and there's almost no limit in my mind to how much power you can put in a car. But the downside of that is that manufacturers are sort of taking away other experiences just in the pursuit of that power. And I know with electric cars, that's becoming sort of a staple. You've got that instant torque and instant acceleration, and so all electric cars nowadays are pretty quick and probably quicker than any supercar that we would have had a few years ago. But that ultimate pursuit of power is just never ending. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is people aren't used to driving cars with that much power. And anybody can go into a dealership now and pick up a car that has, 800 horsepower. And that's a lot for normal people to drive and to get used to. And that's also a lot for experienced drivers to use. And so, that's something that's a little concerning. It's a lot of power for cars. And, what's the end? What's the end game here? Are we looking for cars that are going to have 5,000 horsepower? At what point does it just get a little too ridiculous and too much? I think that there are other things that could be improved and that manufacturers could spend a little bit more time investing into other than just, putting ridiculous amounts of power in cars. Okay, another car trend that's a little frustrating that I'm finding is just the fact that to do all this hybridization and electric car stuff, cars are getting ridiculously complicated. And I don't just mean with, all the technology in cars, but also the drivetrain, the engine and the way that it produces the power and sends the power to the wheels, that's just becoming really, really complicated. And the challenge with that is it may sound really great, it may look really great on paper, but that power and delivery is going to be very expensive to maintain, and it's going to be very complicated to keep running over time. And a lot of these powertrains haven't necessarily been tested out really well because, well, car companies are developing cars very, very quickly. And so there isn't a lot of time to sit and think, well, is this going to work in 10 years from now or in 15 years from now with 200,000 kilometers on it? And so these new developments are being pumped out very quickly, and I just don't know how that's going to work for the longevity of the car. And that to me is a little bit scary. If manufacturers want to create these really complex drivetrains, that's something that we have to be aware of, and something that, maybe a caution as you're going to buy a new vehicle. Maybe think about what that's going to look like if you're going to keep the car for more than 2 or 3 years. And I think over time that's going to simplify a little bit because, electric cars are going to be more advanced. Hybrid vehicles, may not be something that will be as popular in the future, but they may stick around for another decade. And so, the technology will probably get better there as well. But right now there's a lot of, let's just test it and see what works going on in the auto industry. And that's something that to me is a little bit concerning. Now, I know we need that for innovation, and obviously that's important. So it's something that's going to have to happen, but it's just something as a consumer that you may want to think about and consider. Maybe I won't go for the really complicated hybrid powertrain right now. Maybe I'll wait and see what else comes out in the next generation. The last car trend that I find to be a little infuriating is the weight and the size of vehicles nowadays. Now, if we look back at the history of cars, really, they always get bigger and they always get heavier. So that's not something that's brand new. But the weight and the size now are getting exponentially larger than they were a few years ago. And part of that is because, well, we have these complex drivetrains, we have batteries incorporated in cars, we've got electric vehicles, and people's just needs and demands and wants are getting more complex. And so, the car market has to adapt. And with that, cars are just getting enormously heavy and also really large. And that poses a bit of a challenge if you've got, maybe a small parking garage at home. You don't have a big, giant 3-car garage type of thing, or maybe you just want to drive a car that isn't going to consume as much gas and tires and suspension pieces and all of that kind of stuff. And so you want something that's a little bit lighter and more, nimble and exciting to drive. A lot of cars now are just getting really, really heavy and really big. And because of that, a lot of other things are going to be compromised. That is, comfort, suspension, the different tires that are available for you now, because, the cars have to carry much larger loads. And so there's a lot of things that go into maybe this balancing act of manufacturers making cars a lot larger and heavier. And that's something that we have to consider. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be something that's going to go away. When the new BMW M5 is, just as heavy as a Tesla Model X or more heavy than a Tesla Model X, that's something in my mind that's a little concerning and kind of unfortunate. I miss the days of having just lightweight cars and being able to throw them around and enjoy them and not have to worry about, you're carrying around all this weight and having to compensate for it when you're braking and when you're accelerating, going around corners and things like that. At what point is it going to be too heavy? And, the power that we're going to have to put in cars, to be too much just to compensate for that, I don't know, but it's definitely something to consider and think about. So those are the 5 car trends that I find to be a little infuriating and things that we have to think about and maybe consider as we're moving forward into the new generation of electric vehicles and the modernization of vehicles in general. And something that I think is just worth thinking about and talking about as we make our purchasing decisions moving forward. So I hope that you found this video helpful. I've enjoyed making it. I know it's not going to be a very long one for us today, but it's something that I've wanted to talk about. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing week. I'll catch you again in the next one.